I found out on Christmas Eve that my brother and sister had been telling our parents I owed them thousands of dollars. The worst part? I'd never borrowed a single cent from either of them in my entire life. My name is Vera, 31 years young. I work as an interior design consultant. It's satisfying work, honestly. I get to combine creativity with practical problem solving, and over the past 5 years, I've built a career I'm genuinely proud of. My older brother, Brett, is 35 and works in software sales. My younger sister, Kennedy, just turned 28 and does something with social media consulting that I've never fully understood, even after she's explained it 4 times. Growing up, we were close. Not the kind of siblings who told each other everything, but close enough. We celebrated birthdays together, showed up for each other's milestones, texted in our group chat about random things, normal sibling stuff. That all changed around mid-November. I noticed something felt off when Mom called me on a Thursday evening, right as I was finishing up sketches for a client's winter garden design. She had that tone in her voice, the one that meant she was disappointed but trying not to show it. Mom started the conversation normally enough, asking about work and whether I'd finished my holiday shopping yet. Then she said it. "Honey, I know things have been tight for you lately, but you really should try to pay Brett back before the holidays. He mentioned it's been causing some strain." I actually laughed. I thought she was joking or had gotten confused somehow. "Pay Brett back for what?" I asked, genuinely puzzled. There was a pause, a long one. "The money you borrowed from him last spring. Sweetie, he told us it was almost $4,000. My hand froze on my pencil. $4,000? I'd never borrowed money from Brett. Not last spring, not ever. The last time Brett and I had even discussed money was 2 years ago when we split the cost of Dad's surprise 60th birthday party, and I'd paid my half immediately through Venmo." "Mom, I never borrowed money from Brett," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. "There's been some kind of mistake." She sighed, that disappointed sigh parents do when they think you're being defensive. "Vera, he wouldn't make something like that up. He said you needed it for your car repairs and promised to pay him back by summer. It's almost December now." I felt something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was deliberate. "Mom, I'm telling you the truth. I never borrowed any money from him. My car repairs last spring cost $800, and I paid for them myself with my savings. I can show you my bank statements." Another sigh. "Let's not make this into a bigger issue than it needs to be. Just talk to your brother, okay? Work it out between yourselves. I don't want this affecting Christmas." She changed the subject after that, talking about the menu she was planning for Christmas dinner and whether I wanted to bring my famous cranberry cheesecake bars. I barely heard her. My mind kept circling back to what she'd said. "Brett told our parents I owed him $4,000. Why would he do that?" I called Brett the moment I hung up with Mom. He answered on the 5th ring, sounding casual and unbothered. "Hey, what's up?" Brett said like nothing was wrong. "Mom just told me you said I owe you $4,000. What's going on?" Brief silence. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, that. Yeah, I mentioned it to them because I figured they might help remind you. No big deal." "Brett, I never borrowed money from you. Not $4,000, not any amount. What are you talking about?" His tone shifted, became defensive. "Come on, Vera, don't play games. You asked me for help with your car situation last March, and I sent you the money. You said you'd pay me back in a few months." "That never happened. I paid for my own car repairs. I have receipts, bank statements, everything." "Well, maybe you forgot," he said, voice tight now. "Or maybe you're embarrassed about it. Either way, I expect to be paid back. I'm not paying you for money I never borrowed." He hung up on me. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling like I'd just stepped into some alternate reality where nothing made sense. The next morning, I went through every financial record I had from the past year: bank statements, credit card records, Venmo transactions, everything. There was no money transfer from Brett, no large deposits I couldn't account for, nothing that supported his story. I also checked my text messages with him from last spring. We'd barely texted at all during March and April. A few messages about Mom's birthday gift in early March, a funny meme he'd sent in April, that was it. Nothing about borrowing money, nothing about car troubles. If you're listening to this and thinking I'm crazy for not just brushing this off, let me tell you why I couldn't. Because a week after that phone call with Mom, Dad called me too. This time, it was about Kennedy. Dad opened with small talk about the Christmas light display he was setting up in the front yard. He'd gone all out this year, apparently. Animated reindeer, a light-up nativity scene, the works. Then he dropped it. So your sister mentioned you still haven't paid her back either. Vera, what's going on with you? My throat tightened. What are you talking about? Kennedy said you borrowed $2,500 from her over the summer for your apartment security deposit when you moved. She's been waiting for you to pay her back. I didn't move this summer. I'm still in the same apartment I've been in since I was 28, and I definitely didn't borrow money from Kennedy. He sounded confused now. She said you needed help with a deposit because your landlord raised the rent and you had to put down extra security. That's not true. None of that is true. My rent didn't go up, I didn't move, I didn't borrow money from Kennedy. Then why would she say that? I don't know, Dad, but I'm going to find out. I called Kennedy immediately after hanging up with Dad. She answered cheerfully, Christmas music playing in the background. "Hey, what's up?" Kennedy said, sounding genuinely happy to hear from me. "Dad just told me you said I owe you $2,500. The music got quieter. I heard her moving to another room. "Oh, yeah, I wasn't going to bring it up during the holidays, but since he mentioned it. Kennedy, I never borrowed money from you. Vera, come on. You texted me in July asking for help with your apartment situation. I sent you the money right away because I knew you were stressed. Show me the texts." Silence. "What?" "Show me the texts where I asked you for money. Take a screenshot and send it to me right now." More silence. "I don't have to prove anything to you. I know what happened. You're just being difficult because you don't want to admit you owe me money." "I'm being difficult? You're literally making up stories about me borrowing money that never happened. Maybe you should look at your own financial situation before accusing me of lying," she snapped. "Brett told me you've been having money problems for months. That's probably why you can't remember borrowing from us. You've borrowed from so many people you lost track." That hit me like ice water. Brett told me I've been having money problems? When? A few weeks ago. He said you were really struggling, and that's why you kept asking family members for loans. He wanted to make sure I knew in case you came to me for more money. My vision actually blurred for a second. They'd coordinated this. Brett and Kennedy had gotten together and decided to tell our parents, and apparently each other, that I was some kind of financial disaster who'd been secretly borrowing thousands of dollars from everyone. "I haven't borrowed money from anyone," I said, forcing my voice to stay level. "Not from you, not from Brett, not from anyone. And I'm going to prove it." "Whatever, Vera. You can play victim all you want, but you owe me $2,500 and I expect to get it back." She hung up. I sat on my couch for 20 minutes, just processing what had happened. My own brother and sister were lying about me to our parents, creating this entire false narrative that I was financially irresponsible and owed them money. But why? That question kept me awake for the next 3 nights straight. I couldn't figure out what they had to gain from this. Were they trying to make me look bad? Were they trying to get money from Mom and Dad by making it seem like I owed them money? Was this some twisted sibling rivalry thing I'd somehow missed all these years? Around 10 days before Christmas, I got my answer. Mom called me on a Saturday afternoon. I was at a coffee shop working on design proposals, treating myself to a peppermint mocha because it was the holiday season and I needed something to feel normal about. Vera, honey, your father and I want to talk to you about something. My chest tightened. Here it comes, I thought. We've been hearing from both Brett and Kennedy that you've been having financial difficulties. We're worried about you. Mom, I'm not having financial difficulties. I'm doing fine. Better than fine, actually. I got a promotion 4 months ago and a significant raise. My savings account is healthy. I have no debt except my student loans, which I'm paying off on schedule.
Sweetheart, it's nothing to be ashamed of. These things happen. But you can't keep borrowing from your siblings and not paying them back. It's causing problems in the family. I pressed my palm against my forehead, feeling a headache building. I didn't borrow from them. I keep telling you this. They're lying. Vera, Mom said, her voice taking on that stern tone from my childhood, your brother and sister wouldn't both lie about the same thing. That doesn't make any sense. Then why would I lie? We think you might be embarrassed, or maybe you're having trouble admitting you need help. Your father and I talked about it, and we've decided we're going to help you pay them back. Everything stopped. What? We're going to give Brett and Kennedy the money you owe them. Consider it an early Christmas gift to all 3 of you. That way there's no tension at Christmas dinner, and you can focus on getting your finances in order. Mom, no, please don't do that. I don't owe them anything. It's already decided. Your father is writing the checks this weekend. Brett needs $4,000 and Kennedy needs $2,500. We're happy to help. $6,500. My parents were about to give my brother and sister $6,500 because of lies they'd told. Mom, please listen to me. I can prove I never borrowed that money. Give me a chance to show you. Honey, we don't need proof. We trust your brother and sister, and we trust that you'll pay us back when you're in a better place financially. Consider it a loan from us instead of from them. No pressure, no timeline, just family helping family. She hung up before I could argue further. I sat in that coffee shop feeling completely hollow. My siblings had successfully scammed our parents out of $6,500 by making me look like an irresponsible liar. And Christmas was in 11 days. What would you do if your own family was lying about you like this? Would you let it go to keep the peace? Or would you fight back even if it meant ruining the holidays? Drop a comment and let me know your thoughts, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I spent that entire weekend gathering evidence. I printed out every bank statement from the past year. I compiled my credit card statements showing exactly what I'd purchased and when. I took screenshots of every single text message conversation I'd had with Brett and Kennedy for the last 18 months. I even got a letter from my landlord confirming I'd been in the same apartment for 3 years with no changes to my lease or security deposit. Then I created a timeline document that showed exactly where every dollar of my income had gone, my salary, my expenses, my savings, everything. If someone was going to accuse me of being financially irresponsible, I was going to prove otherwise with hard data. On Monday morning, 5 days before Christmas, I drove to my parents' house with a folder full of documentation. Mom answered the door wearing her favorite Christmas sweater, the one with the embroidered snowmen. She looked surprised to see me. Vera, I wasn't expecting you today. I need to talk to you and Dad. Is he home? Something in my voice must have told her this was serious, because she let me in without the usual small talk about whether I wanted coffee or cookies. Dad was in the living room, adjusting ornaments on their Christmas tree. They'd gone with a traditional red and gold theme this year. It looked beautiful. It felt wrong to be having this conversation in front of something so festive. I sat them both down and opened my folder. Before you give Brett and Kennedy any money, I need you to look at this. Over the next 40 minutes, I walked them through everything. The bank statements showing no large deposits from my siblings. The text message conversations that proved we'd never discussed loans. The landlord letter. My financial timeline showing consistent, responsible money management.
Mom kept shaking her head, like she was trying to make the information fit a different narrative. Dad stayed quiet, studying each document carefully. When I finished, I looked at them both. I'm not lying. I never borrowed money from Brett or Kennedy. I don't know why they're saying I did, but it's not true, and I need you to believe me. Dad set down the last bank statement and looked at Mom. Some silent communication passed between them that I couldn't read. Finally, Dad spoke. This is concerning. It's more than concerning, I said. They're lying to you to get money, and they're destroying my reputation in the process. Mom's eyes were getting glassy. She hated conflict in the family, always had. Maybe there's been a misunderstanding somewhere, she said weakly. Mom, there's no misunderstanding. They both told you specific amounts, specific reasons, specific time frames. Those are details. That's not confusion. That's intentional. Dad leaned back in his chair, looking older than I'd ever seen him. What do you want us to do? Don't give them the money and ask them to explain themselves. Show them this evidence and let them try to justify their lies. Dad nodded slowly. Mom wiped at her eyes. This is going to ruin Christmas, she whispered. They already ruined it, I said quietly. I'm just trying to stop them from ruining my life, too. Dad called a family meeting for December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. He didn't tell Brett and Kennedy what it was about, just said it was important and everyone needed to be there at 6 in the evening. Mom spent the whole day before baking cookies she probably knew no one would eat, keeping her hands busy so she wouldn't fall apart. I arrived some minutes before 6 p.m., my folder of evidence tucked under my arm. The house smelled like sugar cookies and cinnamon rolls. Mom had hung fresh garland around the doorways, and the Christmas lights cast everything in a warm glow that felt completely wrong for what was about to happen. Brett showed up right at 6, looking relaxed in an expensive sweater I'd never seen before. Kennedy arrived 3 minutes later, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing new boots that looked designer. Interesting. We all sat in the living room, Dad in his recliner, Mom perched on the couch beside him. I took the armchair by the window. Brett and Kennedy sat together on the love seat, looking confused but not worried. Dad cleared his throat. Your mother and I asked you all here because we need to clear something up. Brett, Kennedy, you both told us that Vera borrowed money from you and hasn't paid you back.
Brett nodded immediately. Yeah, it's been really frustrating. I've been patient, but Dad held up his hand. Vera came to us with documentation that contradicts everything you've both said. Bank statements, text messages, landlord confirmation. She's provided proof that she never borrowed money from either of you. The room went completely still. Even the Christmas tree lights seemed to stop twinkling. Kennedy recovered first, forcing out a laugh. Dad, come on. Of course she'd make up fake documents to get out of paying us back. She's desperate. These aren't fake, I said calmly. Every single piece of paper can be verified. Bank statements have transaction numbers, text message screenshots have timestamps and phone numbers. My landlord signed and dated an official letter. You want to call my bank right now? I'll give you permission. Brett's expression changed. Something flickered across his face that I'd never seen before. Calculation. Cold calculation. This is insane, he said, looking at our parents. She's making us look like liars because she doesn't want to admit she has a problem. Then show us your evidence, Dad said quietly. Show us the bank transfers where you sent her money. Show us the text messages where she asked for loans. Kennedy's face flushed red. I don't have to prove anything. I know what happened. Yes, you do, Dad said, and his voice was harder than I'd ever heard it. If you're going to accuse your sister of owing you thousands of dollars, you need to back it up. Show us something. Anything. Brett stood up abruptly. I'm not going to sit here and be interrogated like I'm the bad guy. I helped my sister when she needed it, and this is how she repays me? By turning you against me? Sit down, Dad said. Brett sat. Mom was crying silently now, tissues clutched in her hand. She kept looking between all three of us like she was watching her family shatter in real time.
Here's what I think happened, Dad continued. I think you both made up stories about Vera owing you money so that your mother and I would give you cash. I think you saw an opportunity to get $6,500 from us by making your sister look financially irresponsible. That's ridiculous, Kennedy said, but her voice shook. Is it? Because Vera has evidence supporting her story. You have nothing. No texts, no bank transfers, nothing. Just accusations. I watched my siblings' faces carefully. Brett's neck was turning red, creeping up toward his jaw. Kennedy kept glancing at the door like she was calculating whether she could just leave. Why? I asked. That's what I can't figure out. Why do this? Kennedy's eyes met mine for just a second, and I saw something there. Resentment. Deep, bitter resentment that apparently had been festering for longer than I realized. Want to know why? Kennedy said suddenly, her voice sharp. Because you always get everything. The perfect career, the perfect apartment, the perfect life. Meanwhile, Brett and I are drowning in debt trying to keep up appearances, and you just coast along like everything's easy. There it was. So you decided to play games with Mom and Dad? I said. We needed the money, Brett said, and his voice was defensive now. Caught. You don't understand what it's like. My mortgage is killing me. My company cut commissions last quarter. I needed that $4,000. And I'm behind on 3 credit cards, Kennedy added, like that justified everything. My consulting business isn't bringing in what I thought it would. I needed help, but I knew Mom and Dad would ask too many questions if I just asked directly. So you made me the villain instead? I said. Kennedy shrugged. Actually shrugged. It was supposed to be simple. They'd give us the money, we'd tell them you paid us back eventually, everything would be fine. How were we supposed to know you'd go full detective and ruin everything? Mom made a sound like something breaking. Dad put his hand over hers. Get out, Dad said. Brett blinked. What? Get out of my house, both of you. Dad, come on, Kennedy started. You lied to us. You tried to steal from us. You threw your sister under the bus to cover your own financial mistakes. I don't want to look at either of you right now. It's 2 days before Christmas, Brett said, and he actually sounded offended. Then you should have thought about that before you decided to scam your family, Dad replied. Get out. They left. Kennedy grabbed her coat and rushed out without another word. Brett paused at the door, looking back at me with pure hatred in his eyes. You just couldn't let it go, could you? He said. You had to ruin everything. I didn't ruin anything, I said. You did that yourself. He slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. The 3 of us sat in silence for several minutes. The Christmas tree lights kept blinking their cheerful pattern, completely oblivious. I'm so sorry, Mom finally said, looking at me. I should have believed you from the start. You didn't know, I said, even though part of me was still hurt that they doubted me. We should have known, Dad said firmly. We should have asked for proof before just accepting what they said. We failed you, and I'm sorry. I nodded, not trusting my voice. What do we do now? Mom asked. I don't know, Dad said, but they're not getting any money from us. Not for Christmas, not ever, until they make this right. Christmas Eve the next day was surreal, just the 3 of us. Mom cooked a smaller dinner. Dad didn't play Christmas music like he usually did. We exchanged modest gifts and tried to pretend everything was normal, but the empty chairs at the table were impossible to ignore. Brett and Kennedy both sent texts to our parents that evening, not apologies, accusations, saying I'd manipulated Mom and Dad against them, saying I was the real liar, saying they were the victims here. Dad blocked their numbers. If you're still listening and you've dealt with family betrayal like this, drop a comment about how you handled it. Sometimes knowing you're not alone in these situations makes all the difference. The real fallout started after Christmas. Kennedy posted something vague about toxic family members who refused to take accountability. Within hours, several relatives were calling Mom, asking what happened. Kennedy had apparently been reaching out to aunts and uncles with her version of events, painting me as the problem. I didn't respond publicly.
Instead, I sent a private message to each family member who reached out, offering to show them the same documentation I'd shown my parents. Most of them took me up on it. My Aunt Lorraine was the first one to call after reviewing everything. "Those two should be ashamed of themselves," she said, voice tight with anger. "I gave Kennedy $200 last month because she said she was short on rent. Now I'm wondering if that was a lie too." Turned out it was. Kennedy had been running the same scam on multiple family members for months, small amounts here and there, always with sob stories about unexpected expenses or temporary cash flow problems. Brett had been doing the same thing with our Uncle Raymond and a couple of cousins. The family group chat that had been silent exploded on December 28th. Aunt Lorraine posted a message asking Brett and Kennedy point blank to explain themselves. My cousin Rachel chimed in, saying Brett owed her $800 from October. Uncle Raymond said he'd lent Brett $1,500 back in September. The numbers kept climbing as more relatives came forward. Brett tried to defend himself, claiming everyone was ganging up on him. Kennedy left the group chat entirely. On New Year's Eve, both their stories completely fell apart when my cousin posted screenshots of text conversations where Brett and Kennedy had been coaching each other on who to target next for money. They literally kept a spreadsheet of family members ranked by how likely they were to give them cash without asking too many questions. I was rated as difficult, requires evidence on their list. Mom and Dad were listed as easy targets, guilt works best. The family cut them off completely after that. No one would take their calls. They were uninvited from the annual family reunion being planned for next summer. Our grandmother, who was 92 and usually stayed out of family drama, called Brett personally to tell him she was disappointed in him. That seemed to hurt him more than anything else. In mid-January, Brett finally sent me a text. Not an apology, just, "Are you happy now? You destroyed our family." I didn't respond. Kennedy tried a different approach. She sent a long email in late January explaining that she'd been going through things and made poor choices, but she was working on herself now. She wanted to move forward and heal as a family. Notice she never actually apologized. I didn't respond to that either. My parents struggled with the whole situation. Mom kept wanting to reach out to them to fix things somehow. Dad was firmer about maintaining boundaries. They'd lied, they'd stolen, they'd tried to destroy their sister's reputation. There were consequences for that. In February, I found out through a family friend that Brett had to sell his house. The mortgage he'd mentioned apparently was far worse than he'd let on, and without family members to borrow from, he couldn't keep up payments. He moved into a rental apartment across town. Kennedy's social media consulting business folded completely. Turns out, most of her clients were people she'd met through family connections, and once word got around about what she'd done, nobody wanted to work with her. I didn't feel victorious hearing any of this. I just felt sad. Sad that my siblings had been so desperate and so selfish that they'd destroyed our family over money. Here's the thing, though. I'm not the one who ruined Christmas. I'm not the one who lied and schemed and manipulated. I just refused to be their scapegoat. Some people have told me I should have just let it go, that family is family and you forgive and move on. But those people weren't the ones being accused of things they didn't do. They weren't watching their parents almost hand over thousands of dollars because of lies. I protected myself. I told the truth. I let the consequences fall where they belonged. It's now almost a year later, and Brett and Kennedy still haven't genuinely apologized. Mom talks to them occasionally, brief phone calls where they stick to safe topics. Dad refuses contact entirely. I've seen them exactly once, at a funeral for a distant relative in August. We didn't speak. Maybe someday they'll understand what they did. Maybe they'll actually apologize and mean it. Maybe our family will find a way to heal. But that's not my responsibility. I'm not the one who broke us. They did that all by themselves. And honestly, I'm doing fine. better than fine. My career is thriving. My relationships with my parents are stronger than ever, built on truth instead of assumptions. I'm surrounded by people who believed me when it mattered. Sometimes standing up for yourself means watching relationships crumble. Sometimes the price of truth is loneliness. But I'd rather be alone and honest than connected through lies. That's my story. That's what happened when I found out my siblings were telling our parents I owed them money. The money I never borrowed, the debts that never existed, the lies that destroyed everything. Thanks for listening.